Hello all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be tackling the holy grail of marketing and product strategy, and that is mapping out user or customer journeys. Now I say holy grail because in part, yes, the quest for the perfect user journey map is something of a never-ending story. But it's also because the user journey really does encompass most of what matters to any business. So if you can understand where your customers are going, if you can understand the steps that are needed to get them there and where they're starting from, then you're in a much better position to meet them in the right places with the right tone, with the right projects and campaigns. So I'll be splitting this up into two videos. In this first video, I'll be using a tool called Flotion to map out a customer journey. And in the second video, we'll be filling out that customer journey map with some more specific details. The resulting flow is something that I'll make available as a template so that anyone out there with an active Notion account can copy the template and start using it for themselves. So let's get into the build then. So for any customer or user journey, it's always going to be helpful to be specific. And so what I'm going to do is imagine that I am building this customer journey map for an e-commerce client. Let's say I've been tasked with developing their marketing strategy for the next 12 months. Part of that will include some projects and campaigns, etc. But one piece of it is going to be to help them map out their customer journey from discovering the website to browsing, maybe adding something to cart. There'll be some various stages that are important and ultimately converting into sales. So for the Flotion builders out there, if I were to do this with my e-commerce client, I would follow these exact steps, which is just create a new flow inside of or from your Flotion dashboard. I've already done that here. Generate it, it'll take a couple of minutes for it to start. Give it a name. I'm going to rename this to be, let's give our fake client a name and maybe just remind ourselves of which one it is. Acme Inc. e-commerce. And when I click in, we have our new flow. Now I've already set up the new page and menu, and I've just added an outline for what we're going to build for this particular customer journey map. So let's remind ourselves here as well, customer journey map for Acme Inc. And you can see already that there are a few different sections which I think are going to be important for the build. And the task that we have ahead of us is to create these various workspaces in a way that is easy to navigate, add to, and ultimately fill out in what will, I think, be the next video. So we're just setting up the framework and the structure, and the first step is going to be to create some pages for each of these. So I'm just going to do that quickly here with this new page button. I didn't count how many are needed. Let me fast forward through this as I just rename these pages and get it set up. If you are wondering how I came up with this outline in the first place, there's not much to it, really. It's not some long plan that I've had for this. It's just I did some research on what are common user journey frameworks and paths. These seem to be things that came up regularly, and I just want to take this as a starting point. And then for our particular e-commerce business, I'm going to adjust that so that this flow is actually more specific to that particular use case. So if you wanted to include the research and planning part in this, you could actually easily just create a research page within the flow. So I'm going to do that quickly. Let's just say research. There's a component which is just going to be the research library that's going to help us out here. I'm going to create that, add it in, and I believe I read some HubSpot articles which were quite good at outlining it, a few other resources, and also just my own experience from having developed a few of these user journeys myself. So this is now our outline has been transferred into some pages, and I think what I'm going to do is probably start with the stages piece of the customer journey. So we can even just copy this over since I've already typed it out. I'm going to head over to the stages page, paste these down, and start to think about what exactly this might look like in the context of our acne ink. This is just kind of to start fleshing out for our e-commerce client what exactly those kind of high-level buckets might actually mean in practice. And right now we just have a list of bullet points, but in the Flotion editor, we do have a user stages component. So I'm going to add that. It's called user journey. And this is a database which has a lot of useful linked properties. So what we've got are some key user stages. They are in a table, and what it looks like we need to perhaps think about next is the personas that best belong to each of those stages. So remember, in this video, my goal is really to just kind of set the framework for us, give ourselves the big building blocks that we need to then fill it out and tailor it and make it more specific to our client. And so I'm probably just going to follow this plan of pages and workspaces, and then we can see how we might usefully link them in the following video. So I can use this user stages page as kind of a starting point. So maybe the next thing on the list to build out are these personas. So I'm going to want to have a workspace where I can develop and think through who are these people that are going to be using the product, who are going to be interested in the product, who are going to be sharing it, talking about it, and ultimately who are going to be our customers. So there's a personas component as well, and this is already linked to our user stages database. So for example, if I look in here, I can see that there's Janet, Julia, James. If I were to add another persona, which was John, just to keep it in the J's, then I can add John as a persona. And if I head to this stages part, and maybe we think that John should be part of the discovery stage, it looks like he's already in there. Is that true? I don't think that's true. Let's add John. Something odd is going on here. Julia. Jeanette. Persona template. Interesting. Let's clear them all and try again. John. Okay, we've got John in there. As you can see though, these databases are linked so that if I wanted to just quickly go in and remind myself, John is here, and all of the information that we've collected and written up about John can be found here, and he belongs to this discovery stage. Now, realistically, probably all the personas are going to belong. They're going to have a discovery stage of their own. This becomes more useful when you get to things like renewal and referral. Maybe you have some personas that are you're intentionally targeting these people because you think they will be strong referrers or referees, or you're targeting them because you think they have a long lifespan. So, Jeanette and James, maybe they are just interested in buying one product and that's it. But maybe we think that Julia is a candidate for buying 3 or 4 or 5 different items per year, and that she might also go ahead and refer further down the line. So the stages, discovery is probably going to have most of our personas, but again, you can see how these things might link up. So now we have a space to develop our user personas. We have our user stages, and we can always edit these if we want. We can change the names. We can add new stages to this if we want to. So maybe the sign up, we could even add another step, which is literally add to cart, and we can go through the relevant actions and projects and things that need to happen there. So stages, personas, research. Let's just move this down to the bottom since, that's always useful, but we're not going to be developing it further in this video. Targets and forecasting. I also think that's going to come a little bit later. Initiatives is also later. So we got a bit of a reverse order going on, I think, here. So let's just return to this. Personas. I think use cases is going to be an important thing to flesh out and think about. And there's also some related properties to this database. So there's another database for use cases, which we can add. And this is really one of my favorite and most used components, which is it helps you be specific about what is the scenario that a particular persona is in when they are either considering your product or they make a purchase or they're trying to solve a specific problem. So for our e-commerce business, we might actually just put in a couple of scenarios so they might be. And now I think we need to give our e-commerce business a little bit more detail. So let's say that they are in retail and they are selling some style of fashion. Maybe it's athletic fashion gear. Athletic clothing, let's say that. And so, a use case or a scenario might be, New Year resolution. They want to work out more, and so they need a new outfit. Let's say that they're going to motivate themselves by buying a new wardrobe of athletic gear. So that's a very specific use case, and we might know, or we might already have in our mind that this is for Jeanette and James. These are two personas we know that have this use case. We can then move through this table and start to fill it out with more detail. So offerings, in this particular instance, we might just directly relabel this to be products. So if we have a catalog of clothing items, then we could fill in this products database with, we can be as specific or as categorical as we like. So maybe we might I'm just going to head over to this products database and I'm going to add a few product categories. So things like, sweatpants might be a category, sweatshirts might be another, socks, shoes, etc. So you can get the idea that when we go and fill out this particular framework later on in the second video, we could get quite we could go into more detail on what exactly these products might be. But let's just say New Year's resolution for persona template. That's not quite right. Something's a little bit buggy here, but hopefully we can fix that. So let's say it's just for Jeanette, and she's looking for sweatpants and sweatshirts. Features list, again, so this might be where we have a specific product instead of these categories. So again, we can fill this out in the following video. But what's helpful here, I think, for as far as user journey goes, we could very quickly start to brainstorm some keywords and content ideas that are relevant to this use case. So New Year's resolution, that's already kind of making me think, okay, New Year's workout outfit. Is that right? So we might go and do some keyword research on these types of New Year's workouts related types of things, and whether those keywords are part of an SEO strategy. We're going to figure out which traction channels make the most sense for this user journey, but chances are online e-commerce, clothing business, SEO, and content are going to be part of the strategy. So we can use this use cases database to fill out a list of use cases, specify who it's for, which offerings they're going to be interested in, and then kind of start to generate different keywords and content. We could also add a property which is the channel by which we want to reach them, and that could be linked to our traction channels or touchpoints database. So I think we might leave that for the next video where we fill this out further. But in terms of setting up the framework, we now have our stages. We have a place to work on our personas. We have a place to list out specific use cases, all the while linking this back to the various personas. And we could also do the different stages. So maybe that's something we could add to this as well, is the stage at which this use case is most relevant. So I'm wary of going too long here, but for example, this New Year's resolution, new outfit, that might be a discovery, part of the discovery stage. So if I link this to the stages property, then I can look through and I could just add it as part of the discovery stage. But there might be a renewal, a use case that's more suited to renewals. And so that might be to, I don't know, update your athletic wardrobe. Again, we'll have a few personas. We'll have a few different product categories, maybe things that wear out more quickly. I don't know. And we can, again, kind of think about which user stage is most relevant, and we can add that into this, all into this use cases table. So that's going to be helpful, I think, for us. Initiatives, I think this is, we could even blend that into the projects, which is really about, once we figure out the customer journey that we're trying to create, then we can start to plan some projects and initiatives that will fill in the gaps. So, we want users to take, steps A, B, and C. In order for them to take step B, which might be sign up to the mailing list or download a PDF or something to sign up to the mailing list, we're probably going to need to create that PDF. So as we're mapping out the journey, there'll be some projects and initiatives that need to be done and implemented, and we will probably circle back to that later. So what is left on our list? There are some key user actions which we could list and map out. So this might just be a list to start with, which could be list of key user actions. So we might start from the end and come back to this, which is, by end I mean the endpoints that we have in mind for our customers. And again, let's just create a list here. There are some specific kind of endpoints that we can plot for the customer, which are to do with our business. And we could also do one that is more aligned with the actual user's goals. So I'm going to see how this pans out. We may end up putting these side by side, but we could also have a section which is for mapping out the customer's, we can just say customer goals. So what are the things that they're trying to achieve? These are things which, as a brand, we can speak to. It can be one of our values, which aligns with the customers, but it's not something that we're doing directly. So if you're selling athletic clothing, you're not actually coaching someone or training someone through their workouts and trying to get them in shape. It's kind of an indirect pathway, but it's helpful for us to know, what does the customer really, really care about? Where do our products and services fit into that journey? And then related to that, what are our customer endpoints that we need to be tracking? And a third piece of this user sentiment, journey, needs, etc., is the pain points. So we can look at the user goals. So these are some things that they're trying to accomplish. And from there, we can kind of start to consider some pain points. from these pain points, we can start to kind of, if one of our product strengths is quality and it's longevity and there's a guarantee and these types of things, we can start to promote those qualities in our messaging, and that will kind of just more naturally meet or more directly meet this particular user's pain point. It's typically a better way for people to be introduced. And again, in the discovery stage, we have some personas. So these pain points, while we're just listing them out now in bullet points, when we go into our personas, so let's say we go into James, there is a list or a tags. There's a property where we can tag these pain points that we're listing here. So these are a few different tags that we could add, and then we could go through our personas and just tag them with the pain points that are most relevant. And as we kind of develop each of these different workspaces piece by piece, we get a richer view of who are our people and where they are in the journey, and then which messaging and campaigns might be most relevant to them. So now that we have a little bit more rich information about our personas and what they're trying to achieve, and we have a rough outline of the buckets of the stages they're going to move through, we can start to get a little bit more specific about these endpoints and about the key actions that will move them to that particular spot. And then, we have our endpoint, which is sign up to mailing list. So by just kind of fleshing out in more detail what are the actual specific steps that might get someone to this point of signing up to the mailing list, we could very quickly brainstorm, a list of 20, 30, 40 different user actions, each of which kind of imply a few things that need to be in place. So, for example, they need to find a mailing list sign up option. If on your website you don't have an easy way for members to sign up to the mailing list, that might kind of immediately go into a project, which is to, improve the mailing list sign up flow. So let's now let that kind of lead into this projects section. So I'm going to just create it from the Flotion components editor, and I'm going to delete all of these. And we can update the categories and things like that, but for now I'm just going to clear everything, and I'm just going to jot down this idea which we had, which was to improve the UX, the mailing list sign up UX. So that might be a project that if we're working on our own website, we just set aside some time for. If we have a developer, we give it to our developer and say, hey, or our designer, we want to improve mailing list signups. This is a project, and within it, we could have some tasks that are more specific to keep track of its progress. So hopefully we can see how these workspaces are going to start to work together. So for example, we were just talking about signing up to the mailing list. Because I headed back to this stages, I just can quickly add that this project, which we just created, we can see that this project could be added to our user stages, and it will now belong to the sign up stage. So we can further flesh out our user actions. We will in the next video, but now let's continue with our with building out the framework. We've kind of hinted at a few of these traction channels and touch points already, but let's just prepare this space now while we are on the topic. So I'm going to use this traction channels component. I'm going to add this in here, and these will be some various marketing channels that we can look to as ways of reaching our target personas. So this is a list of 19 traction channels that are quite common. They will be pre-linked to common user journey stages, but of course we will go through and update these, and we can either add a active kind of checkbox to select the channels that we want to include or that we think are relevant in our customer journey map, and we can just kind of select the ones that we're going to be using. So we already mentioned SEO, we mentioned content marketing, we said email marketing. So as we kind of flesh out the customer journey, we can return to this touch points and just make sure that we're keeping track of our traction channels and where we want to be active. So now we have some touch points that are going to be linked. From these touch points, we could also link these projects to them, but it's not entirely necessary. So what is left? What's left is the customer sentiment, initiatives, which can be linked with projects, targets and forecasting. So for this, I just wanted to kind of map out, for example, the conversion rates across the user journey. So we could have a section here which is to help us set some goals. So let's say that we already had some clear targets from our client for their business. Maybe they have a revenue goal, they have a mailing list goal, they have a traffic goal. And if not, if part of the project is to develop that, you might develop that in a different workspace, but it would be helpful to have the targets that are in mind for this project listed in this page. And the forecasting section is more about, okay, so we have, let's say we're trying to get to conversions in this user stage need to be, 100 customers per month, something like this. Maybe it's 1,000. We can add that to the objectives. But then what's interesting is if we take that as our starting point, 100 customers per month, how many mailing list signups or how many people need to move through the sign up piece of our funnel. So let's just look at this Gantt chart version. So we're saying that this onboarding includes conversions. We need 100 to get to here. How many then need to get to here? Maybe it's an order of 10, maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 5,000, and we get 2% coming through into the purchase stage. And if so, if it's 1,000, then how much website traffic do we need? Maybe it's another order of 10. And so we have 10,000. So I would be interested in probably just having a forecasting section kind of breaking down the conversion rates and things for the user journey in order that we meet our business goals. And we could do that in this section here. Customer sentiment. I think this is an area where we could, at the very least, map out the desired sentiment at each stage. So, for example, the discovery stage, maybe we have a list of things like we want them to feel curious, intrigued, entertained, these types of things. We could map out kind of specific emotional responses that we're aiming for, but it could also be to a place where we can keep track of some of these endpoints that were more sentiment based, and we could even add a surveys table to this page to keep track of some, to get some more concrete data on whether or not we're meeting those customer sentiment goals. So I believe it's in product. So there's a surveys table we can add to this. And we might just repurpose this to be keeping track of various customer sentiment surveys. I think that makes sense. So what do we have? Let's just take a look. So let's just say that I wanted to get started mapping out this customer journey for Acme Inc., which is an e-commerce store. I would have a place where I can list the stages, and they're connected to various projects, contents, personas, and channels. I could flesh out the personas in more detail. I could list specific use cases and link those to products and personas. I can list out the pain points and also add them to the personas as tags. I can list out the customer endpoints we're working towards, list out the user goals, touch points that will be active and which part of the journey they belong to. Projects and initiatives, I have a space where, as I'm brainstorming use cases and user actions, I can add different projects and things that need to happen. I think I just realized one thing that might be useful, which is a specific content section. So that might be, we might have some projects that are content specific, but I think, or we might have some content based projects, but content typically is quite a useful thing to have on its own. So I'm going to add a content calendar. I mean, it can just be a content database. So this already has a calendar and a list of ideas across different media. You can add a brainstorming board, topics list. Maybe let's add a topics list. And I might just add, for now that's fine. We can brainstorm some topics that are going to be useful. And if in the process of, let's say, thinking through this use cases table, we come up with a content idea based on New Year's outfits, we could say best workout brands for the new year. Maybe that's an article. We can now add that to the content database. And now we have a specific page to keep track of these content pieces that have been listed. So this would be in the articles list. If I were to go to the content database itself, I need to give it a status. That's why it's not showing up. So what did we just create? New Year's best outfits, something. There we go. We can say this is an article. It's an idea. We can give it a date, and it will now show up in our content calendar and as an idea on our list. So this is our content piece. So again, we're getting the framework. Now we have a content space. So as we come up with content ideas, content projects, we can add them to the correct place. Initiatives, I might just add a brainstorming board here just to, I think that's actually linked to the content. So let's create an incubator board. Even I get mixed up sometimes with the naming, which is not a good sign. So incubator board, this is linked with some endpoints, pain points, user actions, user goals. So that's helpful. So I think that's a pretty good starting point for this framework. And I think we're in a spot where next video, in the process of actually filling it out and making it specific to this company and their needs, we will tidy it up even further. We can just make this a little bit, there's a little bit more aesthetic. So I think that's a pretty good starting point, and we're now in a position where we could go ahead and fill this out for a client as needed. I hope that this video gave you some ideas for mapping out your own customer journeys, whether that's for your own business or for clients. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we're going to fill out the details for our Acme Inc. e-commerce customer journey. See you there.